Hey everybody, it's Nick. Today we're going to talk about purchase contracts, right? I get a lot of questions about, well, if I find a deal, I find the right house, how am I going to fill out the paperwork, what goes into this contract? They're all very good questions. I would just say don't let that stop you from moving forward, right? So what's the purchase contract? It's just an agreement between you, if you're the buyer, and the seller of what's going to happen in order for you to buy their house, right? So you need to have certain things in there: a buyer's name, a seller's name. You gotta have a date, you're gonna have a price, and then you have what you're purchasing, right? Describing the property. There are a bunch of other things that go in your standard real estate contract, but those are the main things you gotta have in there, okay? So let's take a quick look at one, fill in some of the blanks, and I think this might help alleviate some of the anxiety and some of the stress that goes along with it. All right, so here we've got your standard TREC, which is your Texas Real Estate Commission 1 to 4 family residential contract. That's what you'd use in the state of Texas to purchase your regular single family homes, your duplex, up to your fourplex. This is what is probably most common around. Some things are going to be different in other states, so if you're there, it may not be exactly like this, but I think this will give you a good idea of some of the things you can look for. So let's start here, right? What do we say is a couple of things we need? We need a buyer and a seller. So it kind of leads you along the way, right? The parties to this contract are the seller, right? So let's say that we're going to buy this guy from Mr. Smith. So we'll put Mr. Smith, probably say John Smith or something like that, but we'll go with Mr. Smith for right now, right? You're going to be the buyer. So let's say your company is ABC House Buyers, right? Now, one thing, if you guys want to assign this contract, right, you're thinking about wholesale and you want the option to assign it, go ahead and put your company name in here and then put and or assigns, right? So what that is going to do is give you the right to assign this to another buyer or another company, right? It won't change anything else that's in the contract, but it does give you the right to legally assign it once it's in there. All right, so what's one of the other things we know that we need? We need to know what we're going to buy, okay? So lot, block, we're really just describing the property, okay? So city, you guys probably know what city you're in, but let's just say you're in San Antonio, right, which is also in Bexar County. Okay. Also known as, this is something you're going to know because you went and you looked at the house, you decided what it is, but it's at 123 Main Street, right? Lot and block number. One of the easiest places to find things like that is just go to your county website, right? So they're going to have that on there. So you can usually search by the property address, you search by the owner's name, and it'll say something like lot 7 and block 12, right? Go ahead and fill those in. So now there's a ton of other stuff that's going to be in most of these, but we've got a couple of the big parts. So we got Mr. Smith as our seller, we got ourselves as the buyer and or assigns. Now we know what we're talking about, what we're actually going to buy. And let's scroll down here. What else is important? Well, we want to have a price, right? You got to agree on something. All right. So first part here says, what's the cash portion of the sales price? Let's say you agreed to give him $100,000 all cash, right? If there was some financing in there, then you could put part of that is going to be financed. So this would then be, the cash part would be just your down payment, what you're going to put there, and here's going to be your total. We told him that we're going to give him $100,000 all cash, so it's $100,000 there, and the total is $100,000. So we're most of the way there, right? Earnest money. Okay, so earnest money is an amount of money that you're going to give to folks to let them know that you're going to buy the property, you're willing to put this money up, and you're willing to give this money up if they can provide clear title and you can't perform and come through and do what you said you were going to do with the closing date. Right, so let's say that you, there's a lot of options. People have a lot of opinions on how much you should put in here. We'll leave that for another video or something for up to you, but just today, let's just put $1,000 in there that you put as earnest money and the escrow agent, right? Hopefully you've either reached out to some folks and you found a good title company or an investor-friendly title company that does a lot of these types of deals and works with a lot of these properties, so you can put them in because they'll be easy to work with there. And there's an escrow agent, so that's the person that works at the title company that you probably got recommended. So let's just say that we're using Kim Smith here, who's our escrow agent. Here's the address of the title company. We'll put that in there. Title policy, we'll go ahead and knock that out while we're here, right? What's the title policy? The title policy is what's going to be issued from the title company. I don't want to go too deep into it, but it's going to be issued by the title company. It's one of the bigger expenses as far as the closing cost. So if you agree to pay all the closing costs, then you would check a box that looks like the buyer's expense. Since you're the buyer, you're going to do it. Typical transaction, that's just a negotiating tool, something you notice. And then we got the title company. So let's say that this person works at Excel Title Company, right? So now we got that part in here. All right, we're jumping to page 2. Now, folks, we're not going to do every single part of this because this video would go on a long time, but we want to make sure we cover all the big basic parts of it, and the rest we can work, you can work on it, you can go. And remember, you can always amend a contract if you need to change something, you need to fix it. An amendment's just going to be an agreement with you and the seller saying that you agree to change something, you agree to add something later into the contract. But a lot of them have the address of the property, so you're going to want to add that back in on each one of these pages. That's letting everybody know that this goes with the first page. Survey, if you're going to need a survey for the property, lots of times if you're buying all cash, you may not get a survey. That may be a choice that you make. Obviously, educate yourself before you decide whether you're going to buy with surveys, with or without title policy, with or without inspections, all those things. Obviously, get some good advice. Talk to your attorney, talk to your other investor friends, and see what they say. You're going to go through these blanks, and they're not that hard. If you don't know them, you can leave them blank, and you guys can come back to them later if you need to fill them out or if you need to make an amendment, right? Just don't let it stop you from moving forward with your investment purchase. All right, membership in a property, say this thing's not in an HOA. That's all that's asking you right there. And you see a lot of these, right? So we can add the address back in here. I'm not going to keep doing that on every page, but now we're on page 310. A lot of these are just things to get it added in there. As you go through and you read through them, most of them will be self-explanatory. If not, just ask a friend or ask that person at the title company. They can explain every single thing that's in here because they've seen 1,000 of them. But a lot of this, there's nothing for you to even fill out here, okay? You have to sign every page, but now we're looking at a whole page there that you don't even have to sign. All right. Here's a good one, right? Property condition, okay? If they did do a seller's disclosure, a lot of them won't, but you can check one of these boxes. Hey, the seller's not required to furnish it under Texas property code. This means you agreed to buy it without a seller's disclosure. And also, lots of folks will want to see, hey, we said we'll take this property as is, where is, any and all faults, right? So you put that in there. Remember how we said earlier we've got to have a date in here? So this is your closing date, right? And most of these read the closing of the sale will be on or before a certain date, right? So you told them whatever your agreement was, maybe it was 2 weeks, maybe it was 2 months, but you can type that date in here, right? Okay, so now we've got a buyer, a seller, a purchase price, we got property, so we know what we're going to purchase, and we got a date that we're going to do it on or before that date. You're going to take possession most of the time upon funding and closing. If they were to happen to lease the property to you, or you were to do a lease back to those folks, then you'd have to check a different box on when you might take actual possession of the property. Special provisions. This is a good one. This is where you guys can add extra things in there, right? That's going to happen in the sale of this property. Buyer agrees to accept the property as is. Buyer waives the right to a survey. Buyer agrees to pay for half the survey and half of the title policy. Whatever it is that you think should be added in there that you and the seller agree on, this is a spot where you can put that all in there, and then when everybody signs off of it, that's going to become part of the contract. Here we are on page 6. A lot of this is already filled out for you, right? Again, we can put the property address up at the top. All things that you should read through and know what you're signing, and you should let them read through so they know what they're signing, but there are things that you've agreed to here. But again, there's no spots for you to fill out, so there's not anything to be super scared of over there. 7, some more information's in here. Obviously, we got to put some contact information, right? You're the buyer. How do people get a hold of you? How does the title company get a hold of you? The seller, how does the title company get a hold of them? Lots of times they're going to have questions for them. They got to make sure they get them a receipted copy of the contract. So get their name, their address, good phone number for them, and a good email. Here on page 8, this termination option. So if you agreed with the seller that you're going to get a certain number of days to look at and inspect the property, or you're going to give them a certain amount of money for a certain amount of days to be able to get out of the contract with no penalties, right? That'll fall in your termination option, also be the option fee, right? So you could put in the amount of money that you would give them. Let's say you give them $50, right, to have, and you agree with them 5 days, and that 5 days to inspect the property, anything else you might want to do to look at it. If you guys have both agreed on that, here's a spot to do it. What it means is you're going to give $50, you put it up with the title company, and that gives you the rights to 5 days to back out of the contract without a penalty. They will get to keep the $50, but then you're not you're free to leave this contract at that time as long as you give written notice within whatever that time frame is that y'all set. Consult an attorney before signing. I would tell you to talk to an attorney or somebody before you sign any of these contracts, just because you want to make sure that you know what you're doing, what you're signing, what you're agreeing to do, and what you're asking other people to agree to do. So make sure you get yourself familiar or talk to somebody who's really familiar so that you're comfortable and you know what you're talking about, what you're agreeing to once you've got the basics down. If you have an attorney or they have an attorney, obviously you would fill in that information here. And once everybody signed the contract, it can then be executed. That could be by you or the title company will execute it if they don't get it. The broker information, that's if there's real estate agents involved. Lots of times with ours, we don't have that. That's one way we help save them on the cost. And that's basically it. Remember, don't let this be something that stops you from moving forward. Okay, make sure you got a buyer, you got a seller, you got a property address, you got an agreed upon pricing, you got an agreed upon date. The rest of the stuff, a lot of these pages and a lot of them in there are stuff you don't have to fill out. So you can walk through it, read through it a couple times before the first time you go ask somebody to sign it, so you know a little more about what you're talking about. Hope this helps. Hope this alleviates some of the anxiety about starting to fill out your first one all by yourself. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe, and we'll talk soon.